In Cuba, the search for survivors continues at Saratoga Hotel in Havana, which was destroyed by an accidental explosion that left 27 dead so far. The President of Mexico, Andrés Manuel Lopez Obrador, arrived in Cuba on Saturday, concluding his tour to Central America and the Caribbean. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad met with top Iranian leaders, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and President Ibrahim Raisi in a surprise visit in Tehran on Sunday, then left for Damascus the same day. Hi, this is From the South. I am your news anchor, Dio Martin, from the TeleSUR studios in Havana. We begin with the news. In Cuba, the search for survivors continues at Saratoga Hotel in Havana, which was destroyed by an accidental explosion that left 27 people dead so far. After more than 43 hours of uninterrupted work by rescuers, Alexis Acosta, mayor of La Habana Vieja, stated that the volume of the destruction was complicating the search efforts. Acosta added that the rescuers were able to open up their way to the administrative offices and the warehouse of the collapsed structure. The authorities stated that they have the human and material resources to continue the rescue operations, but must proceed with caution due to flooded or very unstable areas. Rescuers estimate that there are people trapped in the basement of the hotel, but added that they must assess the safest way to remove the debris in order to enter the site. Luis Antonio Torres, first secretary of the Cuban Communist Party in Havana, made a statement on the events at the Saratoga Hotel and stressed that the search and rescue efforts are progressing at the site.
Well, as you know, all night long we continue the work of rescue and search for human lives or rescue of corpses that are in the affected area. As I have explained since the first intervention I made yesterday morning, this is a slow task, because it is a search for corpses or people who have survived. There, besides, we are in the presence of a structure that, although in the not collapsing all its dimension, there are important parts that collapsed. Therefore, the work of the specialists, the technicians of the fire department, and of other institutions that are participating is slow because of the level of responsibility that they have in the search and the rescue efforts.
Likewise, the first secretary of the Communist Party of Cuba in Havana, Luis Antonio Torres, indicated that specialists from different governmental entities are evaluating the situation of the building.
At this moment, with the presence of Commander Ramiro, the Minister of Construction, the OSD partner, the project, the ENIA, everyone, they are assessing the situation of the building. Remember that it has not yet been possible for these specialists to enter at the places. The firemen have entered. They are searching for lives of corpses, but now the process begins. Those that are being released. That the specialists then begin to enter to analyze the structure and evaluate the situation to know if the building can be preserved or not.
The President of Mexico, Andrés Manuel Lopez Obrador, arrived in Cuba Saturday, concluding thus his tour to Central America and the Caribbean. Lopez Obrador arrived at Havana's Jose Marti International Airport, where he was received by Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez. The Mexican head of state is expected to meet with his Cuban counterpart Miguel Díaz-Canel to sign agreements on economic, political, and migration issues. During his tour of Central America and the Caribbean, Lopez Obrador demanded that no country of the continent be excluded of the Americas Summit, which will be held next month in June. In Italy, during the 18th Congress of the World Trade Union Federation, participants rejected the blockade imposed on Cuba by the United States. The Congress expressed its solidarity with Cuba and rejected the economic, commercial, and financial blockade imposed by the United States on the island, noting that the blockade costs the Cuban state around $12 million a day, which accumulates during the last 6 decades an approximate of $1,326,432 million in gold. It points out that the blockade is a massive human rights violation of the Cuban people, an inhumane policy aimed at generating shortages and destabilization, and affirms that it is the main obstacle for the recovery of the Cuban economy. On Saturday, the March of Central American Mothers demonstrated in the Zócalo of the Mexican capital to demand justice and the location of their missing sons and daughters who have disappeared during their migratory transit through Mexico. The contingent of almost 50 people marched through the streets of the historic center of Mexico City with photographs of their missing sons and daughters and the flags of Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. On their return to Mexico after 2 years of the pandemic, the mothers have traveled through the states of Chiapas, Veracruz, Tabasco, and the capital to ask Mexican authorities for progress on the complaints they submitted for their missing relatives. It is worth mentioning that the region is experiencing a record migratory flow to the United States, whose Customs and Border Protection Office detected more than 1.7 million undocumented immigrants at the Mexican border in the fiscal year 2021, which ended on September 30th of that. The governments of Venezuela and Bolivia ratified their willingness to strengthen bilateral cooperation with the Third Joint Integration Commission and the meeting of the Political Consulting Mechanism. In a joint statement issued by Venezuelan Foreign Minister Felix Plasencia and his Bolivian counterpart Rogelio Maita, following Plasencia's visit to the Andean country on May 5 to 6, the parties agreed to hold the second meeting of the Consular and Migratory Consultation Mechanism as a forum for dialogue to benefit their communities abroad. They reviewed the negotiation agreements in various areas such as tourism, environment, ecological mining development, among others. Meanwhile, they agreed on the need to strengthen bilateral commercial relations, so the parties convened to develop joint strategies in order that businesses could be done in the medium and long term. And on Sunday, the Panamanian government called the transporters to a dialogue next week in an attempt to stop a strike called by the sector due to the increase in fuel prices. According to a report by the Transit and Land Transportation Authority, the talks will begin on Wednesday, May 11th, after drivers in the provinces of Chiriquí and the Caribbean province of Colón announced that they will stop services as a pressure measure. As for the school transportation, bus owners urged the executive branch to find solutions to the rampant rise in diesel and gasoline prices. They invited the country's different transport unions and other operators as users, as well as the competent authorities, in order to identify alternatives to a problem that affects everyone. According to the drivers, it is impossible to provide the service with a rate of 30 cents of a dollar, which has been enforced for 11 years, while the executive does nothing to freeze or reduce the high costs of gasoline and diesel. In Haiti, hundreds of people in the north of Port-au-Prince took to the streets on Friday to celebrate the return to normal after 2 weeks of gang warfare. Residents of the northern neighborhood of Croix de Mission also claimed that the national government failed to act in light of the clashes that kept businesses and schools closed for more than 10 days. In addition, the conflict also resulted in burnt houses and the permanent anxiety of the local population. All of this is a result of violence between Haiti's main gangs, Chen Mechan and the rival 400 Mawozo. However, the territorial war between two rival gangs continues in other districts of the capital.
I ask for peace. I also ask people not to turn away from the area. As in Martisan, all activities are stopped. We want to return to activities again. I ask everyone who goes to public parks in other areas like arcades, cabaret, that they come back to their homes.
We're going to take a short break now. Please join us again after this. Hi, and welcome back to From the South. On Saturday, the former president of Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, officially announced his presidential candidacy for the general elections in October. The activity took place in the city of Sao Paulo. At the event headed by former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, it was launched the Let's Go Together for Brazil movement, which brings together the 7 political parties that support Lula. This also includes multiple unions and social organizations such as the Landless Movement. The Workers' Party pointed out that the movement Let's Go Together for Brazil seeks to return the nation to the path of social justice, economic growth, sovereignty, and democracy. This weekend, a coalition of labor unions, social movements, and left-wing political parties united to launch the candidacy of Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva for the Brazilian presidency. In Sao Paulo, our correspondent Brian Meyer reports.
Thousands of working-class social movement and labor union activists gathered in São Paulo on Saturday to participate in the official launching of Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva's pre-campaign for the Brazilian presidency.
Today we are launching Lula's pre-candidacy. We think he is the only person capable of defeating this anti-democratic project of death that is installed in the federal government today.
The Vamos Juntos pelo Brasil coalition, officially formed on Saturday, is made up of 7 left and center-left political parties, 7 union federations, and dozens of working-class social movements. Together, they have pledged to work to return Lula to the presidency.
We can't stop dreaming and fighting so that this country reflects all of its grandeur, its people and its culture, and definitively end injustice.
At the event, Lula, who was politically imprisoned for 580 days during the last election season on a frivolous conviction that's been reversed by the Supreme Court and ruled unfair by the UN Human Rights Committee, returned to a theme that has dominated his 50-year political career: hunger.
We are the world's third largest food producer and the largest producer of animal protein. We produce more food than we need to guarantee quality food for everyone. Nevertheless, hunger has returned to our country.
Ryan Mir, TeleSUR, São Paulo.
In Chile, a group of demonstrators marched on Friday from Italia Square to the hospital known as Former Central Center in support of journalist Francisca Sandoval, who was shot last weekend. The protest ended with police repression outside the healthcare center. Previously, a rally was organized by Señal 3 La Victoria, the community channel where the journalist Francisca Sandoval used to work. Sandoval was seriously injured while covering the Labor Day March in Central Station. As reported by Carabineros at 1900 hours on Friday local time, hundreds of people gathered outside the former Central Hospital were setting up barricades, and at about 2000 hours a procedure was initiated because the demonstrators allegedly had started to vandalize a gas station and a drugstore near the hospital. In response to this situation, the police began to repress the demonstrators using the water launcher car in the sector.
It is important to be here, to continue to highlight this struggle and everything that happened on Sunday, which was regrettable. On Sunday, we really suffered. I would say that it was practically a trap. They were waiting for us, to attack us. Drug dealers were ready. Before we arrived with the whole demonstration, the repression and the attack had already begun.
Francisca is a comrade, she is a friend, and the situation she's going through hurts me a lot. But Francisca represents the struggle of all us here, and the best way we can contribute to the battle Francisca is going through in the hospital is to keep up the fight, to keep going on the street, because they wanted to impose fear on us with what happened on Sunday, but we are telling them that we are not afraid of them.
Sinn Féin, which seeks unification with the Republic of Ireland, held a new era Saturday for Northern Ireland as it achieved the largest number of seats in the Northern Ireland Assembly for the first time. With almost all votes counted from Thursday's local United Kingdom election, the party secured 27 of the Assembly's 90 seats. The Democratic Unionist Party, which has dominated Northern Ireland's legislature for 2 decades, attained 24 seats. Saturday's results bring Sinn Féin's ultimate goal of a united Ireland a step closer, although the party kept unification out of the spotlight this year during a campaign dominated by the skyrocketing cost of living. Under a mandatory power-sharing system created by the 1998 peace agreement that ended decades of Catholic-Protestant conflict, the jobs of First Minister and Deputy First Minister are split between the biggest unionist party and the largest nationalist one. Both posts must be filled for a government to function. The victory means Sinn Féin is entitled to the post of First Minister in Belfast for the first time since Northern Ireland was founded as a Protestant majority state in 1921.
Today ushers in a new era, which I believe presents us all with an opportunity to reimagine relationships in this society on the basis of fairness, on the basis of equality, and on the basis of social justice. Irrespective of religious, political, or social backgrounds, my commitment is to make politics work.
I am delighted with the result for Sinn Féin. I mean, it's clear that our vote has surged. We have had a very positive and a very successful campaign, and we look forward now to getting back to work. Michelle will lead our team on Monday up to Stormont.
From eastern Ukraine, special correspondent Alejandro Kirk spoke to an officer of the pro-Russian militias who explained an important point that's come up in this new stage of the special military operation conducted there by Moscow and the territories of Donetsk and Luhansk.
In the context of the delivery of humanitarian aid for the population of Kirovsk, an industrial zone of Lugansk, an officer explained to us why the advancement of Russian troops and the local people's militia is a little less fast than many people expected.
При планировании наступательных действий руководство Народной милиции Луганской Народной Республики, также военнослужащие.
First of all, when planning offensive actions, the leadership of the People's Militia of the Luhansk People's Republic as well as the Russian Federation are guided by the principle that we should not leave behind a scorched earth, but liberate it. Therefore, it is difficult for us to advance in all parts of the terrain. It should not be forgotten that the Ukrainian servicemen are covered by people as human shields. There is a great deal of evidence from people we have already freed that the Ukrainian military is literally putting civilians in front of them to prevent our soldiers from hitting their storage of equipment and weapons. Now they are just also holding people hostage. Just recently, more than 20 people were released in the village of Popasna, where Ukrainian nationalists simply kept them locked up in the basement, and the youths held there were used as slave labor. That is, to move equipment, build fortifications, and threatened that if they did not take up arms, their relatives would simply be killed. All this combined makes it difficult for our troops to advance.
That's it from Kirovsk, People's Republic of Lugansk.
We have more news coming up after a final short break. Please stay with us. Hi and welcome back. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad met with top Iranian leaders, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and President Ebrahim Raisi in a surprise visit to Tehran on Sunday, then left for Damascus the same day. The Supreme Leader's website confirmed the meeting. Its readout of the rare sit-down quoted Khamenei as telling Assad that his victory in an international war increased the credibility of Syria and that Iran wishes to boost bilateral ties. This is the Syrian president's second trip to Tehran since the beginning of Syria's war in 2011. He had previously met the Iranian Supreme Leader, his biggest regional ally, in February 2019. At the time, Qasem Soleimani, the commander-in-chief of the Quds Force, the foreign operations arm of the elite Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, had accompanied Assad on his visit. Soleimani was assassinated by a United States drone attack in Iraq in January 2020 under former President Donald Trump's watch. The Arab League on Saturday condemned Israel's approval of the construction of 4,000 new housing units in Jewish settlements in the occupied West Bank and the demolition of 12 villages south of Hebron. In a press release, the organization stated that the occupation authorities' announcement of new construction plans and authorizing the destruction of villages, displacement of thousands of people from their homes, and confiscation of thousands of dunams of land between the cities of Jerusalem and Jericho were equivalent to war crimes and crimes against humanity under the international law. It cautioned that the Israeli schemes, which are part of escalating Israeli attacks on the Palestinian people and are considered as war crimes, will have adverse repercussions on international security and stability. The government of Ethiopia announced that it will export 100 megawatts of electricity to South Sudan every month for the next 3 years. Ethiopian Electric Power Company authorities informed that a South Sudanese delegation headed by the Minister of Energy and Dams, Peter Michelo, traveled to Sudan to finalize a memorandum of understanding about this transaction agreed upon between both countries. In the first instance, 100 megawatts of electricity will be sent, then the export will be gradually increased to 400 megawatts. The measure seeks to help the neighboring country to meet its growing demands and, in addition, to obtain foreign currency that will help develop important projects quickly. Protesters rallied in front of the Presidential Secretariat of Sri Lanka in Colombo on Saturday to voice their concern about the state of emergency and the use of force by police on peaceful protesters. The country is also going through its worst economic crisis in recent memory, triggering protests across the Indian Ocean island nation, with people demanding the resignation of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and his powerful ruling family. The head of state issued a decree declaring a public emergency on Friday. The declaration of emergency came on the same day that shops, offices, banks, and schools closed across the country, heeding calls for a shutdown in protest against the president and his family. Trade unions have warned of continued strikes from May 11th if they do not resign by then. At least 7 people have died in fires in the Siberian region of Krasnoyarsk in eastern Russia, where flames ripped through villages and high winds hampered efforts to extinguish the blaze. Hundreds of firefighters tried to contain the blaze, which are a rare occurrence in the region during May and have been fueled by a lack of rain and fierce winds. In the Krasnoyarsk region, at least 5 people lost their lives in the fires, which damaged about 450 homes, the local authorities said, declaring a state of emergency. Regional Governor Alexander Us said winds of up to 144 kilometers per hour had brought down trees and power lines across the region, sparking the fires. We've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at TeleSUR English. You can also join us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I am Dio Martin. Thank you for watching.